The stellar assembly hall floated in the stillness of Voron Prime's orbit like a glass crown in the void. From above, it looked serene, rings of polished silver encasing a transparent dome. But inside, it buzzed with tension, arrogance, and the kind of laughter that made truth shrink. Rows of delegates filled the crescent tiers, scaled, feathered, metallic, and translucent beings from every known quadrant, each a representative of their civilization's pride. At the center stood the ecliptic table, a gleaming circular platform where the galaxy's most powerful minds debated what was right and wrong for every living thing. The session began with a hum of formality, the kind that dulled curiosity before it could breathe. Order, droned Counselor Therax Dern, his voice sharp enough to cut through static. He was tall even by Voron standards, his skin the color of dull iron, his expression carved from logic. Before we proceed to the trade revisions, we shall address the matter of the recovered object found near the Orion Abyss. Preliminary scans identify it as human in origin. A low ripple ran through the chamber, half amusement, half disdain. Human, croaked Var diplomat, her neck fins fluttering. You mean those creatures? The warm-blooded brutes who burned their own planet to ash. Scattered laughter followed. They must have sent this one before they obliterated themselves. Another voice chimed. Perhaps it contains a secret to self-destruction. Eris Ven remained silent at his post among the Voron delegation. He did not laugh. His fingers traced the edge of the console before him, feeling the smoothness of the polished alloy, grounding himself. He had spent years studying the remnants of extinct species, biological data, abandoned satellites, fragments of culture long erased. None fascinated him like humanity did. They were an old taboo, an academic infection no one dared admit they carried. The Human Ban Edict, passed 5 centuries ago, forbade all study, discussion, or sympathy toward the extinct species. The Concord's record described him as emotionally volatile, genetically reckless, and evolutionarily unsustainable. And yet, something about that final phrase had always struck Eris as dishonest. Therax continued, tapping his datapad. The object, a primitive data core, has been contained for analysis. While the Concord prohibits direct research into human artifacts, we must ensure it poses no security threat. Commander Eris Ven of Voron Division has been assigned to verify its contents. A few heads turned his way. The murmurs began again, disbelief, mockery, curiosity. The Voron volunteer? One delegate whispered loudly enough to echo, "Careful, Commander. They say human relics carry contagions of emotion." More laughter. Eris met the stares without expression. "I'll ensure the contagion remains contained," he said evenly. Therax nodded curtly. "See that you do. The chamber grants you limited clearance under Edict Clause 12. Decryption is authorized only for threat assessment. Any sentimental analysis will be considered subversive activity." That earned another round of laughter. Sentimental analysis. The phrase itself was an insult in this hall. Emotion, passion, curiosity, qualities once considered the fire of progress, were now labeled symptoms of instability. The discussion shifted to trade tariffs and border agreements, but Eris barely heard it. His mind lingered on that single word. Human. The sound of it carried weight, as though the syllables remembered what the galaxy had chosen to forget. When the meeting adjourned, Eris gathered his holopads and walked the long corridor out of the chamber. The walls pulsed faintly with light, as if alive with silent judgment. Therax's voice followed him. "Commander." Eris stopped. "Counselor." The older Voron approached, hands clasped behind his back. His silver uniform reflected the chamber's sterile glow. "You seemed uneasy. I'm simply considering the assignment." Therax tilted his head. "Don't. Curiosity about them has ruined careers. They were a diseased species. Their extinction preserves stability. You of all beings should appreciate that." Eris's eyes flicked toward the viewport. Outside, the stars shimmered like distant embers. "Stability," he repeated softly. "Yes, Counselor, I understand." Therax studied him, then nodded once. "Good. Keep your thoughts that way." He turned and strode off, his boots clicking like the tick of a clock, counting down to conformity. When the corridor emptied, Eris exhaled. The silence pressed around him, heavy and metallic. He moved toward the observation deck at the station's edge. From there, the galaxy unfurled in breathtaking stillness. Nebulae drifted like painted smoke, and the blue curve of Voron Prime glowed below, a world engineered to perfection. No storms, no hunger, no emotion. Every living being content, regulated, precise. And yet, as Eris stared into that vast calm, he felt something faint, almost intrusive, a yearning. He had no word for it in Voron speech, but he had read one once, buried in forbidden fragments of human text. Wonder. "Commander," chirped a soft digital voice from his wrist console. It was Elith, his AI assistant. "Your assignment file has been transferred. The artifact awaits in Lab Sector 9. "Understood," he replied. Elith hesitated. "You seem off balance." "Just tired," he said. "Would you like me to adjust your neural equilibrium?" "No. Leave it." He turned from the window. His reflection caught in the glass, a tall, smooth-skinned being with dark, expressionless eyes. Perfect symmetry. No hint of imperfection. No trace of humanity. And yet somewhere beneath the calm exterior, a pulse beat faster than it should have. Lab Sector 9 was silent, except for the hum of containment fields. The artifact rested at the center, a sphere of dull metal no larger than a human skull. It looked ancient, its surface scarred and pitted, but faint lines of code glimmered under its shell. Eris approached carefully. "Begin analysis," he instructed. Elitha's voice echoed through the speakers. "Accessing containment parameters. Encryption level. Unknown. Designation. Terran. Warning. Contact restricted under Edict 12. Proceed. Confirm override?" Confirmed. The lights dimmed as the console came alive. Holographic text streamed across the air. Archaic characters, digital noise, fragments of languages long extinct. Then, for a heartbeat, an image flashed. Blue. He froze. The screen flickered, showing a sky. Endless and bright. A sound followed, faint but distinct. Wind, laughter, something like music. Then static consumed it. "Elith," he said quietly. "Run it again." Data fragment corrupted. He leaned closer. The faint echo of the sound still vibrated in the air. It stirred something deep in his chest, a strange warmth spreading beneath the ribs. Not fear, not logic, something entirely alien to his kind. He whispered, "Was that real?" "Unclear," Ellis replied. "Emotional imprint detected. Possible mimetic hazard. Recommend termination of playback." He hesitated, fingers hovering above the control panel. Every instinct trained into him screamed compliance. End it, report it, preserve stability. But instead, he said, "Save the fragment. Secure it under my authorization." "Commander, that violates." "Do it." A pause. Affirmative. The image vanished. The sphere returned to silence, but the sound of laughter still lingered somewhere in Eris's memory. The archive lay beneath the Concord research spire, hidden below layers of polished corridors where the air smelled of sterilized metal and order. Few ever descended this deep. Few returned unchanged. It was where the galaxy buried its inconvenient truths. Commander Eris Venn moved through the dim hall alone, his footsteps swallowed by the hum of containment fields. Every door he passed bore warnings. Restricted historical quarantine, access by authorization only. His clearance code shimmered on his wrist console, glowing faintly as each barrier unlocked with a soft chime. When the final gate sealed behind him, the silence pressed close, almost physical. The archive stretched before him like a labyrinth of frozen memories, rows of stasis vaults suspended in blue light. Inside them, fragments of lost civilizations floated. Crystalline data cores, fossilized instruments, shards of artwork that had outlived their creators. And at the center of the hall, on a raised plinth of obsidian, waited the human probe. It looked lifeless now, a metallic sphere resting within a ring of scanning drones. But Eris knew what it contained. He had replayed that fleeting image, the blue sky, the sound of laughter, countless times since the assembly. The fragment had become an itch in his thoughts, impossible to ignore. "Elith," he murmured. His AI materialized as a holographic wisp beside him, shaped like a slender figure of light. "Online, Commander." Activate internal decryption environment. No uplink. Local containment only. Protocol accepted. Elith replied. Encryption sealed. Emotional filters engaged. Eris hesitated. Disable the filters. The AI flickered. That would violate safety directives. I'm aware. Proceed. A pause stretched between them. Then, confirmed. Filters offline. The lights dimmed further as the probe's surface shimmered. Lines of data unfolded across the room like strands of light weaving a web. For a moment, nothing happened. Then motion. A burst of color bloomed into existence. Eris found himself staring into an image, three-dimensional, vivid, alive. A field of green stretched to the horizon, blades of grass rippling under sunlight. In the distance, structures of stone and glass pierced the sky. He could hear something faint, voices, laughter, the sound of wind brushing through trees. He stepped closer. Is this simulation? Negative, Elith answered softly. Recorded sensory data. Authentic Terran environment. Eris reached toward the image, hand trembling. His fingers passed through light and memory, but the warmth felt real. His pulse quickened. A human figure appeared. A child, perhaps 10 years old, chasing a small metallic oar that floated playfully above the grass. The child's laughter rang through the room, bright and pure. The sound pierced him. He didn't understand why it hurt. Pause playback, he whispered. The projection froze. He exhaled slowly. They had such noise in their voices. Emotion, Ella said. Primitive biochemical expression. Primitive, Eris repeated, though his tone was uncertain. And yet there's power in it. He resumed playback. The scene shifted. Cities rose. Oceans shimmered. Skies thundered. He watched humans in all their contradictions, creating, destroying, dreaming. Soldiers marched. Artists painted. Scientists gazed into the stars. He saw love, anger, fear, triumph. A lifetime condensed into fragments. Hours passed unnoticed. When the last image faded, Eris remained standing in the dark, breath unsteady. Elith, he said quietly, what do you see in them? The AI paused before answering. Instability, conflict, but also vitality. They were unpredictable. They felt. His voice carried wonder and unease. And because they felt, they acted. Emotion breeds chaos. And order breeds stagnation, he countered. A long silence followed. Elitha's holographic form flickered faintly, almost hesitant. Commander, your neural readings indicate irregularities. You are experiencing emotional resonance. Shall I correct it? No. Symptoms may worsen. I said no. He turned away, pacing toward the plinth. What if they weren't what the Concord said they were? Evidence suggests self-destruction. War, ecological collapse, social fragmentation. Eris ran a hand across the probe's surface. Or sacrifice. The archive is incomplete. What if their end wasn't failure, but choice? Elith processed silently. Speculative hypothesis. Unsupported. Then I'll find support. He began scanning for deeper data layers, forcing open encryption barriers the AI hesitated to touch. Warning symbols flared red. Commander, Elith warned, breach level exceeds your clearance. Override authorization. Ven 7-3 Omega. Override accepted. Another surge of static filled the chamber. Then something new, a voice, faint and distorted, emerged from the projection. Female, human. To whoever find this, if you can hear me, it means we failed. Or succeeded. I don't know anymore. Eris froze. The projection stabilized. A woman appeared, dark hair pulled back, eyes tired but calm. Behind her, the ruins of the city glowed under an orange sky. This is Dr. Mirasolin of Earth Command. We have initiated Project Gaia Terminus. The storm is coming faster than predicted. The containment field is unstable. If this works, the galaxy will live. If it doesn't, at least we tried. Her voice trembled, but her gaze held steady. They'll call us monsters, I'm sure. But if anyone ever sees this, remember us not for our fear, but for our love, for what we gave. The feed ended abruptly. Eris stood motionless, heart pounding. The silence that followed was unbearable. "Replay," he said. Elith obeyed. The message repeated, the woman's final words echoing through the hall. "Remember us not for our fear, but for our love." When the screen dimmed again, Eris whispered, "Love," the one word they erased from our lexicons. "It is a redundant concept," Elith replied. "Attachment without logic serves no function. Then why does it feel like truth?" No answer. Eris turned toward the shadows of the archive. Vaults stretched endlessly, each holding ghosts of species of Concord had long forgotten. But none had spoken like that woman. None had looked into the void and chosen to act for others. "Commander," Ellis said softly, "your emotional levels are unstable. This data is hazardous. It is recommended that we report the anomaly to the tribunal." "No," Eris said sharply. "Not yet. Suppression of classified data is punishable." "Not yet, Elith." He stood in the quiet hum of the lab, eyes fixed on the probe. If what she said is true, the Concord's history is a lie. Perhaps partial truth, reframed for stability, Elith offered cautiously, or rewritten for control. He touched the metal sphere again, beneath its cold surface. He could almost feel the echo of those last words vibrating like a living pulse. "Love." He straightened. "Seal all records of this session. Encrypt under my private access." "Encryption confirmed," the AI replied, though its tone carried unease. Eris shut down the projections. The lights returned, sterile and white, erasing every trace of color the humans had left behind. Yet something in him refused to fade with it. He gathered his data modules and stepped into the corridor. The archive doors sealed behind him with final hiss, locking away the forbidden world once more. But even as he walked toward the lift, the echo of that woman's voice haunted him. "They'll call us monsters. But if anyone ever sees this, remember us not for our fear, but for our love." The following rotations passed in quiet obsession. Commander Eris Venn barely slept, ate little, and avoided the assembly whenever possible. His quarters became a sanctuary of forbidden light. Screens glowing with fragmented human data, overlapping projections of faces, places, and sounds no Voran had ever seen. Elitha's voice often broke the silence. "Commander, your neural rhythms are unstable. You have exceeded safe exposure limits." Eris ignored it. Enhance the image sequence from File 13. The recording with the ocean. The hologram flickered to life. Waves crashing against the golden shore. Sunlight glittering across the water. He could hear gulls calling. Creatures of open sky. The sound felt alive, untamed. "They built worlds around motion," Eris murmured. Even their silence had rhythm. "Chaotic pattern recognition," Elith replied. "Emotional projection." Eris half smiled. "Call it what you will. Their design and their chaos." He shifted the playback. Images of humans filled the air. Soldiers running through smoke, a woman crying over rubble, a child holding a wounded dog, people singing in crowded streets under rain. Each scene struck deeper than the last. The range of their emotions unsettled him. Rage and compassion existed side by side, both sincere, both powerful. He whispered, almost to himself, "How could being so flawed create something so beautiful?" Elith hesitated, then said, "Beauty is subjective. It holds no measurable value. Maybe that's the value." He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the projection. Humanity had been portrayed as monsters, creatures driven by instinct and impulse. Yet what he saw was complexity, contradiction, and something else he couldn't name. It was as if they carried light and shadow within the same breath. He accessed another segment. The Gaia Terminus files, still partially corrupted. Dozens of smaller clips appeared. Scientists working feverishly, constructing massive energy arrays around a blue planet. Eris watched them coordinate with urgency, not despair. "Elith," he said, "cross-reference their technology signatures with our modern quantum field theory." The AI processed. Partial correlation detected. Their containment grid resembles pre-Concord gravitic field manipulation. Pre-Concord. Eris frowned. Then they were ahead of us. Only in theory. Execution likely unstable. Or purposeful, he countered. They used their planet as a power source. The readings match our stellar shielding fields. They didn't destroy themselves. They ignited themselves. To what end? He hesitated. To protect something. The room felt smaller with each revelation, as if the air itself resisted his thoughts. The Concord's history had painted humanity as self-destructive, extinct by their own hand. But the data told a different story, one of sacrifice, not suicide. He replayed Dr. Mira Solin's final message again. Each time, her voice seemed to grow clearer, steadier. If this works, the galaxy will live. If it doesn't, at least we tried. The simplicity of those words struck him harder than any philosophical doctrine. They didn't seek glory or eternal memory. They simply acted because it was right. A soft alert broke through his reflection. "Commander," Ellis said, "incoming communication from Counselor Therax. Priority channel." Eris straightened, shutting down most of the holograms. "Open link." Therax's image materialized, his expression severe. "Van, you've been absent from your duties. Reports indicate unauthorized access to quarantine archives." "Explain." Eris kept his voice calm. "I'm ensuring the probe's contents are secure. It's more complex than anticipated. I gave you permission for threat analysis, not historical indulgence." Therax snapped. "Do not mistake curiosity for courage. You're walking a dangerous line." "I understand," Eris said carefully. Therax studied him for a moment, eyes narrowing. "You've changed, Commander. There's a tone in your voice, almost emotional. Be cautious." The last researcher who sympathized with human data was stripped of identity protocols. "I assure you, Counselor, my logic remains intact." "Good. Because if I detect even a trace of sentiment, I'll personally revoke your clearance." The link cut abruptly. Eris sat in silence, pulse unsteady. Elitha's voice followed, quiet but firm. "Therax is monitoring your activity. It would be logical to terminate your analysis." "Logic," Eris said, his tone colder than before. "That's all we have left, isn't it?" "Yes," Elith replied. "Logic preserves civilization. And yet humanity perished, and we call that progress." The AI hesitated. "You are beginning to sound human." He looked at the holographic wisp, a flicker of defiance in his gaze. "Then maybe that's not entirely a curse." He reopened the projection. The image shifted to a crowd of humans standing on a city rooftop, looking up at the sky. A faint aurora rippled across it, colors shifting in slow, radiant waves. "Identify phenomenon," he ordered. "Atmospheric energy disturbance, likely the first stage of Gaia Terminus activation." The camera tilted upward. The aurora brightened until the entire sky burned gold. The crowd began to cheer, weep, embrace. No one ran. No one hid. Elitha's sensors flared, energy output at catastrophic levels. They were aware of their imminent destruction. "Yes," Eris whispered. "And they face it anyway." He leaned closer, transfixed. He could feel the echo of their emotion to the recording, terror and hope intertwined. The screen brightened until every figure dissolved into light. Then static, silence. He realized his hands were trembling. For the first time in his life, he felt something like grief, raw, foreign, unstoppable. Elitha's voice softened. "Commander, you are crying." He touched his cheek. A single drop shimmered on his fingertip, clear, warm, impossible. Voran physiology wasn't meant to do that. He stared at it, disbelieving. So this is what they meant by feeling. Emotional instability. Shall I administer correction? He shook his head slowly. "No. Let it stay." He turned toward the viewport. Stars stretched endlessly outside the station's hull, each one distant, sterile, perfect. The galaxy had survived, just as Dr. Solon hoped. But at what cost? In preserving order, the Concord had buried the very soul of life. "Elith," he said quietly, "if humanity hadn't acted, what would the galactic models predict? Simulation indicates total stellar collapse within 5 years of their extinction date. The cause, gamma instability originating from the Sol system. Probability of containment without intervention, 0. Eris exhaled sharply. "They saved us." Every world, every species. And we repaid them with silence. Commander, the data is incomplete. Correlation does not confirm causation. Perhaps not, he admitted. But if there's even a chance it's true, the Concord must know. That would violate the edict. So does truth. He began compiling the decrypted files, encrypting them into a portable core. His movements were precise, deliberate. We'll present partial findings to the Assembly, only enough to provoke reconsideration. Elitha's projection flickered. Risk analysis. Failure likelihood 92%. Success probability negligible. Eris smiled faintly. That's higher than I expected. When the final data packet locked, he sealed the drive and slipped it into his uniform. The weight of it felt immense, as if it carried the pulse of an entire species. He deactivated the lab lights. The holograms faded one by one, leaving only darkness and the soft. The council hall of Concord Prime was built to humble its guests. Its vaulted chamber glowed with pale blue light, radiating quiet authority. Massive columns curved like the ribs of a cosmic beast, and a ring of holographic flames floated above the assembly floor, each flame representing a civilization united under the Concord's rule. Commander Eris Venn stood in the center, alone, surrounded by hundreds of alien eyes. Some shimmered like liquid mercury, others cold and crystalline. The air vibrated with a low hum from translation nodes, syncing dozens of languages into one intelligible stream. Counselor Therax presided from an elevated dais. His tone was controlled, his expression stone. Commander Venn, you have been summoned under Article 17 for unauthorized access to restricted archives and dissemination of unverified pre-Concord data. You will explain yourself. Eris's voice remained steady. The data concerns a human species, once marked as extinct. I present evidence that their end was not self-inflicted. They initiated a containment event that saved the galaxy. A murmur rippled across the chamber, soft at first, then rising into open disbelief. Therax raised a hand. Commander, such claims are forbidden for good reason. Humanity's actions nearly destabilized the galactic core. To call them saviors is a distortion of history. Eris took a breath. Then history needs correction. He gestured to Elith, whose avatar projected beside him as a sphere of light. Display the recovered footage. The chamber dimmed. Holographic imagery burst to life. A human city under twilight skies. Children ran through narrow streets, their laughter echoing. Soldiers handed out water to civilians. The sky above rippled with a gold and emerald aurora, the onset of Gaia Terminus. Every delegate fell silent. They knew the energy would consume their world, Eris said. Yet they stayed. They completed the sequence anyway. Their planet became a stabilizer for the galactic network. That's not chaos. That's sacrifice. Therax leaned forward. Manipulated footage. Emotional dramatization. This is precisely why the band exists. Humans thrived on manipulation and sentiment. They destroyed themselves through excess emotion. Eris's jaw tightened. You call it excess. I call it courage. The counselor's gaze hardened. Courage is reasoned defiance. What you show is madness clothed in poetry. Their extinction was inevitable. Elitha's voice interrupted, calm yet insistent. Historical probability revised. Cross-analysis confirmed Commander Venn's interpretation. Without Gaia Terminus, the gamma collapse would have eradicated 90% of known systems. The room erupted. Translators struggled to keep pace as alien delegates spoke over one another. A winged representative from the Ether Collective slammed a clawed hand on the railing. Are you suggesting our existence owes itself to humans? Therax thundered. Silence. The hall fell quiet again. Eris met the counselor's gaze. You can silence them. You can ignore the truth. But you cannot erase what is recorded. Humanity acted to save us all. Therax's expression darkened. And for what? Look at the galaxy now, united, efficient, logical. Do you truly believe those creatures would fit here? They were chaos incarnate, driven by impulse, war, desire. Eris stepped closer to the dais. And maybe that's what we lost. The fire that made existence worth more than survival. A murmur spread again, but this time it was softer, thoughtful. The delegates were listening. Therax's voice cut through the tension. Enough philosophy. You violated the edict. Your fate will be decided by tribunal. Remove him. Two security officers approached. Eris didn't resist. He looked up at the holographic flames above, the symbols of every civilization that still existed, and wondered how many owed their survival to the ghosts now forgotten. As he turned, a voice rose from the audience. It was Counselor Caliph of the Saphir Dominion, her tone sharp and deliberate. "Wait." Therax paused mid-command. "Counselor Caliph?" She stood, her eyes reflecting the holographic shimmer. If there's even a possibility this data is authentic, suppressing it would be a betrayal of Concord's founding principle. Truth through unity. I motioned for an independent verification. The hall filled with quiet debate. Some delegates nodded in agreement. Others hissed in dissent. Therax clenched his claws on an armrest. Verification is unnecessary. Lies deserve no platform. Then why do they frighten you? Caliph asked coolly. The tension cracked the room in two. Finally, the High Arbiter, an ancient being of crystalline form, rose. Its voice resonated like breaking glass. Motion acknowledged. Data shall be verified. Commander Ven will remain under observation until the process concludes. Therax's glare could have cut through steel. You're making a mistake. The Arbiter's tone was final. We will see. Hours later, Eris sat in an isolation chamber. The walls glowed faintly blue, sterile and soundless. Elith hovered beside him, a soft pulse of light. You risked everything, Elith said. Why? Because truth doesn't need permission, he answered quietly. And maybe they deserve to be remembered not as monsters, but as what they really were. Elith hesitated. You believe they were good? I believe they were alive, he said. And that's more than I can say for most of us. The AI flickered uncertainly, as if struggling with a concept beyond its programming. Your defiance has altered your neural patterns. You exhibit persistent empathy markers. Then maybe I'm catching something human. The door opened. 2 guards entered, followed by Caliph. Her steps were precise, deliberate. Commander, she said, lowering her voice, the verification team confirmed part of your data. The energy signature from Gaia Terminus aligns with our current stabilization grid. Humanity's action did prevent collapse. Eris felt his chest tighten. You mean? Yes, she interrupted. You were right. But that truth won't reach the public. Therax is already moving to seal the findings. Eris exhaled slowly. Of course he is. Caliph stepped closer. He claims releasing this information will destabilize faith in the Concord. He might be right, but so are you. What do you intend to do now? He looked up, meeting her gaze. If they bury the truth, then I'll make sure the galaxy hears it anyway. That's treason, she said flatly. It's justice. She studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she smiled faintly. I see why humans fascinated you. He blinked. You've seen the footage? Yes. And for a moment, I understood what they felt when they looked at their sky. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Finally, she turned toward the exit. You'll have one chance. The verification files are being stored in the Central Archive until the next council session. After that, they'll be destroyed. If you intend to act fast. The door closed behind her. The night over Concord Prime shimmered with auroral light from the planet's magnetic rings, a beauty few notice anymore. Beneath that glow, Commander Eris Ven moved through the maintenance corridors of the Grand Archive, his uniform stripped of insignia, his pulse steady despite what he was about to attempt. Elitha's voice murmured in his ear, calm but edged with worry. Security patrols rotate every 80 seconds. If you move now, you'll reach the core before the next cycle. Understood. His boots made no sound against the composite floor. Every motion was deliberate, efficient. Years of military discipline guided his body, but something entirely different, something human, drove his will. He passed the observation decks where holographic busts of Concord founders shimmered. Their faces, serene and empty, watched as he slipped into the shadowed data vaults. The air grew colder. Lines of blue energy pulsed across the floor, Leading to the heart of the archive, a floating sphere the size of a small ship, humming with the collective memory of thousands of civilizations. Every decree, every rewritten truth, every silence the Concord had maintained was stored here. Elitha's light orb appeared beside him, accessing encryption. I'll need 30 seconds. Make it 20. You're asking the impossible. So, did they? He said softly. A flicker of motion caught his eye. 2 security drones gliding from the corridor. Their sensors flared red. Unauthorized presence detected. A metallic voice barked. Eris raised his pulse disruptor and fired twice. The drones crumpled in a shower of sparks before they could sound an alarm. Elith finished the decryption. Access granted. Upload port active. Eris retrieved the data core from his coat, the one holding the human files. It felt heavier now, not from its mass, but its meaning. Begin transfer. Streams of light poured from the core into the archive's network, blooming like veins of fire through the dark. Human faces, voices, and memories began weaving into the central system. Footage of cities, laughter, storms, and sacrifice, all spilling into the records that had erased them. Elitha's tone shifted. Commander, the system is detecting anomaly. You are rewriting Level 1 history. That's the point. Alarms blared across the vault. Red light washed over the walls. Therax's voice echoed to the comm grid. Van, step away from the archive. This is your final warning. Eris ignored it, fingers flying across the holographic console. Elith, accelerate the upload. I already am. Estimated completion in 62 seconds. The doors burst open. Armed guards flooded the room. Commander Eris Ven, the lead officer shouted. Cease all actions immediately. Eris didn't look up. You want the truth erased again? You'll have to kill me before I let that happen. Therax entered behind them, calm and cold as a blade. You're outnumbered, Commander. You betrayed your species for a myth. Step aside. Eris turned to face him, voice steady. Myth? You've seen the evidence. They saved everything. The stars, the systems, even you. And you buried it because it didn't fit your perfect order. Order preserves life. No. Eris shot back. It suffocates it. The upload hit 70%. Elitha's light flickered under heavy network interference. Commander, system resistance increasing. I'm losing integrity. Eris reached out, steadying the AI's form. Hold on, partner. Just a little longer. Partner? Elith repeated, almost in wonder. Therax's eyes narrowed. You're speaking to a machine as if it were alive. Proof enough that your mind is fractured. Eris smiled faintly. Then maybe I'm finally human. Therax signaled the guards. Detain him. They advanced. But before they could reach him, Elith pulsed with sudden intensity, projecting the footage from Gaia Terminus across the entire hall. The human city appeared again. The aurora, the people, the final moment before the sky ignited. The guards froze, their weapons lowering slightly as the vision played around them. The sound of human voices filled the air, fear and hope intertwined, powerful and real. Therax shouted, "Shut it down!" Eris yelled over the noise, "You can't silence this anymore." The hologram grew brighter until it enveloped everything. A woman's voice, Dr. Mira Solon's, echoed through the chaos. If this works, the galaxy will live. If it doesn't, at least we tried. The upload hit 100%. Light flooded the vault. For a breathless moment, the entire Concord network trembled as if it had taken a heartbeat after centuries of silence. Then everything went dark. When the systems rebooted, the council chambers were in uproar. All central archives now contained the human data. Every delegate across thousands of worlds could see the footage, hear the voices, and feel the truth for themselves. Therax's fury was incandescent. You've doomed the Concord to chaos. Billions will question the foundation of our civilization. Eris, bound in energy restraints, met his glare calmly. Then maybe it's time they started asking. A projection flared above them, an emergency transmission from a high arbiter. Its voice reverberated through the chamber. Historical revision confirmed. Humanity's final act preserved galactic stability. This truth is verified. The ban on human archives is hereby suspended. Gasps rippled across the room. Therax's composure cracked. You cannot. The truth, the arbiter interrupted, cannot be outlawed. The connection severed. For the first time, Therax looked defeated, not by force, but by fact. He turned to Eris, voice low. You think you've saved something? You've only unleashed confusion. Hope is a dangerous contagion. Eris met his gaze. Maybe it's the cure. Therax said nothing more. He walked out in silence, the sound of his footsteps fading beneath the murmurs of awakening minds. Hours later, Eris sat alone in a small detention cell, its walls transparent to the starlight outside. Elith hovered nearby, its glow subdued. You succeeded, the AI said quietly. The truth has spread beyond control. Then humanity lives again, Eris replied. In data only. Data is where everything begins. He leaned back, exhaustion pressing on him like gravity. You know, Elith, when I watched their faces, those last moments, I realized they were afraid to disappear. They just didn't want to be forgotten. Elith shimmered. Your emotions are conflicted. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Silence filled the small room, gentle and unthreatening. Beyond the window, the stars glowed brighter than he remembered. Or maybe he was just seeing them differently now. Elitha's voice softened. The council is debating your fate. Likely exile. Eris smiled faintly. Let them. I've already done what mattered. He reached for the small hollow device on the table and activated it. The image of Dr. Solon appeared once more, frozen mid-sentence, the faintest smile on her face before the light consumed her world. She never knew anyone would see this again, Eris said, but she still looked at the camera, as if she believed someone someday would. Someone did, Ellis said quietly. Yeah, he whispered. Someone did. He looked out into the dark, and for the first time in his life, the stars didn't feel distant. They felt alive. Beyond those lights, messages were already spreading to the galactic network. Fragments of human songs, poetry, and philosophy reappearing after centuries of erasure.